We're going to be doing some reading work today, and we're going to be using story from Frog and Toad Together by Arnold Lobel. Perhaps you remember that we used some Frog and Toad stories to talk about story elements: title, author, characters, setting, problem, solution. So now we're going to be using Frog and Toad stories to help us with retelling a story, putting the events in order, and using some very important words to help us keep track of how to tell the story. When you retell a story, you don't need to tell every single detail and every single thing that happened. You want to choose mostly about 5 main events. First, next, then, after that, finally. Okay, we're going to be using a special worksheet that will help us to remember those important words, and then we'll be taking a look at the story. So let's take a look at the sequencing worksheet. Here we have the 5-finger story sequencing chart that we can use to help us when we retell a story. You can see up here we would put the title, and then you would put the author. And then using your fingers to help you remember about telling a story. So we have first, thinking about the first event, next, then, after that. So these 3 are kind of what happens in the middle of the story. We have first, how does the story begin? Then next, then, after that are the middle parts of the story. And after that is definitely leading up to the end, which we use finally. So as we read our Frog and Toad story, we also want to be thinking about when it's something really important that is happening. And when the story is finished, we're going to use this paper and another one to help us retell the story. Okay, now we're ready to read the story and think about, as we're reading, to think about the main events. So Frog and Toad Together by Arnold Lobel, and we're going to be reading a list. Let's take a look.
A list. One morning, Toad sat in bed. "I have many things to do," he said. "I will write them all down on a list so that I can remember them." Toad wrote on a piece of paper, "A list of things to do today." Then he wrote, "Wake up." "I have done that," said Toad, and he crossed out, "Wake up." Then Toad wrote other things on the paper. A list of things to do today. Wake up, eat breakfast, get dressed, go to Frog's house, take walk with Frog, eat lunch, take nap, play games with Frog, eat supper, go to sleep. "There," said Toad, "now my day is all written down." He got out of bed and had something to eat. Then Toad crossed out, eat breakfast. Toad took his clothes out of the closet and put them on. Then he crossed out, get dressed. Toad put the list in his pocket. He opened the door and walked out into the morning. Soon Toad was at Frog's front door. He took the list from his pocket and crossed out, go to Frog's house. Frog and Toad went on a long walk. Then Toad took the list from his pocket again. He crossed out, take walk with Frog. Just then there was a strong wind. It blew the list out of Toad's hand. The list blew high up into the air. "Help!" cried Toad. "My list is blowing away. What will I do without my list?" "Hurry!" said Frog. "We will run and catch it." "No!" shouted Toad. "I cannot do that." "Why not?" asked Frog. "Because," wailed Toad, "running after my list is not one of the things that I wrote on my list of things to do." Frog ran after the list. He ran over hills and swamps, but the list blew on and on. At last Frog came back to Toad. "I am sorry," gasped Frog, "but I could not catch your list." "Blah," said Toad. "I cannot remember any of the things that were on my list of things to do. I will just have to sit here and do nothing," said Toad. Toad sat and did nothing. Frog sat with him. After a long time, Frog said, "Toad, it is getting dark. We should be going to sleep now." "Go to sleep!" shouted Toad. "That was the last thing on my list." Toad wrote on the ground with a stick, "Go to sleep." Then he crossed out, "Go to sleep." "There," said Toad. "Now my day is all crossed out." "I am glad," said Frog. Then Frog and Toad went right to sleep.
I hope you liked the story. Now let's take a look and think about the events and take a look at the worksheets that I have planned for us. Now that we've read the Frog and Toad story called The List, let's think about the important things that happened using our 5-finger storytelling sequencing. So first, what was the very first thing that happened in the story, right at the beginning? Yes, if you said that Toad made a list of things to do, then that was definitely the very first thing that happened in the story. Right? First. Next, so think about the next most important thing. I know that he began following his list, so we ate breakfast and he got dressed, but that's not really what we want to put as next. We want the next big, most important thing. So can you think of what it was that was the very next important kind of thing that happened in the story? Well, if you said that Frog and Toad went for a walk because it was on the list, then that would definitely be that next event. Right? So first he made the list, and then they went on a walk together. So first he made the list, next he went on the walk together. Then this part right up here should always be the uh-oh part, the problem. What was the sort of terrible thing? Oh no, that happened. Right, the list blew away. Oh no. After that, so now they're sort of trying to solve that problem that happened after that. So what did they do when the list blew away? Did they start looking for it? Did they think of something else to do? Do you remember? What was it that they did? Yeah, the list blew away, and after that, they didn't do anything because Toad couldn't even remember what was on his list, and he really wanted to do what was on his list. And then we're going to lead up to finally, how did the story end? What was the very last thing that happened in that story? And finally, what happened? Yeah, they went to sleep because it was on the list. So we have this sheet for you to use, but we also have this sheet. And this paper has the events from the story. So you do your best to read each of these sentences on your own. You should notice the events are not in the right order, right? Look at this. It says the list blew away. Did that happen first? So you should be trying your best to read what those are. And these papers will be on my website in the Frog and Toad section. Then what you should do is draw a picture to match at least 3 of the events. There's room for you to make a picture in every box, but if you don't quite feel like making a picture, then at least make a picture for 3 of them. Or maybe you have some stickers or things like that that you can use of Frog and Toad type characters. Then you will cut out the boxes, including your pictures, and glue them in the right order on the 5-finger story sequencing chart. And when you glue, remember not to cover those transition words. Don't cover the word where it says first, next, then, after that, finally. So if you need to trim the box a little bit when you cut it and are ready to glue it, then please do that. And when that's all done, then you can retell the story to someone using your completed story sequencing sheet. Remember to read the transition words at the start of each sentence. The transition words. First, next, then, after that, finally. And once you glue them all in order, you'll have the whole story there ready for you to read. And like we said, don't glue on top of those words, and read those words along with the sentences so that you can tell the story. Stay tuned for another Frog and Toad Together story video and sequencing of events coming soon.